There are a lot of mobile games dropping every single day, but let's be honest, there are only a few that stand out, specifically with the month of June around the corner. Hello friends, this is Mobile, and today we're checking out over 30 new mobile games of May 2026 for Android and iOS. So, this actually took a decade to come around, but for better or worse, Playdigious finally decided to bring Slime Rancher to mobile, and the game is now live on both the Google and the Apple Store, with in fact a rating of 5 out of 5, and also a price tag of $8. So Slime Rancher already proved itself as a super addictive and a satisfying game on the platform, since you're basically just running a slime farm on an alien planet, collecting bounce ball creatures, feeding them, mixing them, eventually turning them into profit. It sounds dumb, plays amazing, and Playdigious didn't mess around porting it over either. It runs surprisingly well with or without a controller, and it does look pretty well in every single graphical setting. On another hand, we've got the game Tomb Busters, and the game finally landed today on mobile. It's sitting there with an overwhelmingly positive score in its current state. It took a couple years to come around, but it's well polished and, in my opinion, really worth the wait. So the game itself is as if someone mixed Phasmophobia with like a Chinese myth and like went all the way in survival co-op. You went up to 3 other players diving into tombs, packed with all sorts of traps, rituals, and the deeper you go, the uglier things get as well. Definitely one of those games where like half the fun comes from panicking and accidentally ruining the mission to get it with friends. 10 out of 10. It's a free game, hella fun with friends. This comes in just now, Off the Road finally landed, and it actually went bigger in every possible direction instead of just a reskin. That's right, Off the Road, the original game, already had that sandbox off-road freedom people loved, but this one is absolutely massive. Open roads, muddy mountain trails, deserts, oceans, highways, forests. Basically the kind of map where you stop following objectives after 10 minutes and just start driving somewhere random to see what happens. And the vehicle variety is ridiculous. Like 1 minute you're running a truck, the next you're flying fighter jets, and somehow it's still offline as well. Which honestly might just be the best part of a game this huge. The whole game's about 1 GB in total, and it does have in-app purchases. Highly recommended. Right now it's a solid 9 out of 10. This is by no means, absolutely not the real deal, but honestly you kinda gotta respect the ambition. It's basically this thing, a indie developer trying to recreate the whole open world formula on mobile with crime missions, driving, shooting, open city exploration in Grand Theft Auto 5, and character switch and all that clearly inspired by Rockstar's setup. You can feel the game reaching for that Los Santos sandbox vibe too. It's got fast cars, chaotic streets, shootouts, open world freedom, random activities. It's very much one of those clone projects where the fun mostly comes from just seeing how close they can get to the real thing with all that limited resources. Believe it or not, this version's already downloaded 1 million times. If you missed it previously, well, the Game of Thrones Kingsroad had its grand launch yesterday. It finally came out globally and honestly feels like way more like a proper action RPG than any autoplay MMO mess that we usually get on mobile and what people probably expected from the license and the PC game. Early on, well, the game really just wants you following its guide missions while it slowly unlocks all the systems piece by piece. The story starts at season 4 of the show where you're meeting characters like Jon Snow, and Jaime, and Winterfell, Castle Black, etc. Combat's fully manual, and classes are just basically built more around actual sword fights than fantasy. It's of course a free-to-play game, and it takes about 15 to 20 gigabytes of storage. So on another hand, Genesis War feels like one of those RPGs that already got a huge momentum. It finally came out after a couple of weeks of alpha betas. In fact, today, developers dropped a major new character in the form of the Black Prince. Now, those of you who are a fan of the Genesis War before might recognize the Black Prince from the Genesis War 2. This character creates both mass damage and heal. Genesis War is a proven worthy game so far. It has a successful turn-based combat, great graphics, It's very structured, very polished, very gacha inspired. And if you're in a bit of a doubt, I have personally had at least 2 hours of my past couple of weeks every day grinding Genesis War myself. Pretty good game. So if you've actually been around here for the past 6 months per se, you know pretty well we've included Last Hunt to K in at least 3 or 4 videos, even more. On the list though, whether if you are new to it or not, the fine developers behind this hidden gem just announced a huge update, and this new season in fact expands the live service with more bosses, more co-op content, gear, skins, events, yet the main appeal is still the great combat itself. It's got that same one mistake you're folded instantly energy and that legit Souls-like combat with a nice little science fiction sort of cyberpunk twist. Check it out in case you missed it. This game is free and it's about 2 GB in total. Mini Shoot Adventures is finally on mobile. Man, this thing is legitimately special. See, it's a pretty tiny little Metroidvania sort of shooter game where you control a little ship exploring a huge interconnected world that's packed with just secrets, puzzles, upgrade, the smoothest of gameplays, and non-stop bullet hell fighting. It plays like old school Zelda mixed with twin-stick combat, which is just something of its own kind, and it's constantly rewarding exploration with new abilities, hidden paths. The world design is in fact ridiculously smart. It's got bosses that are insane, and somehow the whole thing stays cozy instead of stressful. One of those indie games that instantly feels crafted with actual love. It might have one problem, although I don't really call it a problem, which is the game's not free, it will take you $5.99. Look guys, Ragnarok just got another new mobile port as well, and this one's going huge. The new world is bringing back the classic Ragnarok online vibe, but with like way more freedom. It's got big maps, class skills, mounts, trading, fashion systems, and lots of online grind as well. In addition, there are new towns, bosses. You can actually switch classes whenever you want and basically become anything. It is, however, at core still the usual MMO life sim, but the scale, customization, and social systems make it feel way more alive than like most mobile Ragnarok games so far. It's a free game, although in beta, about 9 GB in total, and it's available on both the Google and the Apple Store. I'm pretty sure at this point most of you are already familiar with the Garden of Banbun games, and Banbun Escape is another spin on the old mascot horror formula. This time, however, sending you through another kindergarten, which is packed with new puzzles and mascots. It's the same deal. You're exploring, unlocking, collecting clues, and this time using a little drone companion to interact with parts of the environment. It is clearly inspired by the Banbun and the Poppy Playtime style of horror games, but for a free mobile release, it actually tries to recreate that same energy as well as possible. So going down to number 11, we've got Hotel 911. Well, this is an indie project, in fact, and one of those little tight horror games that sort of instantly get under your skin the second you start playing. So the story is you wake up trapped inside this hotel with zombies, lights barely work, and every floor has something waiting around the corner. So most of the gameplay is sneaking, searching for keys and puzzle pieces while trying not to make noise. It's very simple structurally, but the atmosphere and the constant pressure does give it that old school survival horror all the way. On another hand, at number 12, Sword Staff, which we didn't really include in our list but has been out for a while now, is one of those idle RPGs that's trying to mix cozy life sim with like a traditional RPG setup. It's got auto combat, class switching, guild content, offline rewards, and a pretty polished anime style world overall. But the big hook is being able to swap roles freely instead of just locking into one build. So the pacing feels more flexible than the usual idle grinders. Still, however, very menu heavy and progression focused at its core. There's like enough exploration, bosses, and social stuff packed in to keep it from feeling like sort of brainless. Pretty good game. Warhammer 40k Tacticus is doing a big Dawn of War crossover event, and it's just basically pure fan service for the longtime players. There's new characters like Cyrus and the Necron leader are now all joining the roster, alongside a new campaign, raid bosses, and faction battles built around the upcoming Dawn of War return. So, of course, at its core, Tacticus is still the same turn-based tactical RPG, but coming the future fun is mostly coming from building squads across different factions and slowly turning battles into something more of a chess. Check it out in case you missed it. Down to number 14, we've got My Bus Driving Journey. And I gotta say, this is one of those straightforward bus sim games focused on just passenger pickups and working through different driving scenarios. And besides that, for like the 300 megabytes it's asking for is just insane. It is super nice in visuals, it's coming from a small team, and it is a hidden gem, is what I'm saying. You follow traffic rules, parking, dealing with weather conditions, and doing your best completing missions. It also throws a little extra like washing the vehicle, etc. Nothing groundbreaking, just a packed offline sim for folks who enjoy driving games, basically. This also took a pretty good time to come around. Nine Kings is a roguelike auto battler where you're supposedly building a broken kingdom on purpose, and not only by fighting either. You got cards, buildings, spells, etc. Everything stacked into these combos where you either become unstoppable or you just get wiped. Trying, that's a hook. It is not the type of balanced game to feel clean, it's actually built to be broken in interesting and creative ways. It's available now on PC, partially available in several regions right now, and it's coming out fully globally in about 3 days.
This is gonna be one hell of a fight.
On second hands, we've got Battlesuit Aces by Crunchyroll. So it's an action deck builder that looks like somebody fed Gundam, Slay the Spire, and Saturday morning anime directly into a particle accelerator, where instead of watching cards slowly slap each other like they're bored, fights here are pretty fast, chaotic, and built around lane-based mech combat, where pilots, drones, and command cards all combo together into absolute chaos. The whole thing's wrapped inside a fully voiced space adventure with enough personality to make most mobile RPGs look clinically manufactured in comparison, but overall this has serious addiction energy written all over it. The only problem is that it's not a free game, you're gonna be needing a Crunchyroll membership. Imagine logging back into an RPG after every real player in the world already quit and only the NPCs are now left behind trying to survive the collapse or the apocalypse. Well, I gotta say, that's basically the setup for this Raelian NPC Survival, and honestly, it's a way cooler premise than most idle RPGs usually bother even having. So beneath all that flashy anime, the actions and the giant character art, there's some solid strategy here. Formations, pretty good traits, team setups that massively change how fights play out. It's got that usual raids, dungeons, and progression overload mobile gamers are legally trapped inside as well, but it's a well-made game and it's a decent time waster if you're looking for something like that. King of the Road comes in with a arcade racing scan, but deep down it's going for that clean, focused, you versus a highway energy where every overtake actually matters. So yeah, you're driving across massive Europe-inspired motorways with proper traffic flow, smart AI drivers, and a day and night cycle that genuinely changes how you read the road. It's got career modes, different modes, online, offline, and it's not just about winning races either, it's more like building a garage, legacy, one car at a time, earning everything through performance instead of luck and loot boxes. Believe it or not, it's a pretty calm game, precise, low-key addictive, and that one more drive kind of way. It's a free game as well. Now, Holy Grail Returns is actually a dimensional idle RPG where you basically jump into a fantasy world, collect spirits, and build teams to fight across otherworldly battles without overthinking about it. So at its core, it's an RPG, but it's an idle RPG where you're assembling squads, matching synergies, and watching your lineup grow stronger while progress through different realms and secret areas. It's got a lot of those. Very straightforward loop too. Lots of character collecting, team building, and passive progression, all of that wrapped in the multiverse fantasy setup. It does have a pretty relaxed gameplay pace, but it still gives you that constant rush of adrenaline. Coming up behind that, it's a game called Blow It Up. And I'm not really sure, but it's available now globally. I think I've talked about a game before. It's one of those that you can just sit back and enjoy while blasting everything into chaos. So you're basically shooting bombs at your enemies and the physics are pretty cool. I mean, probably the most cool thing about it. It's like the game Worms, and a little bit like the mobile mini version of Portal, and you're just there to master physics with different types of bombs and figuring out the best way to take everything down. It's got over 70 different levels, each one feeling like a little puzzle with its own chaos. Definitely worth a try if you love destruction. It's not a free game, though it'll take you down $2.99. Backpack Legends Adventure RPG is basically what happens when someone looks at an RPG and says, what if inventory management was the actual final boss? So you're not controlling a whole party of anything fancy, your hero and a backpack that decides whether you live or get deleted instantly. Every weapon, staff, bow, and random piece of loot has to be carefully placed in a grid, and the way you pack it literally changes how strong you are in fights. So yeah, half the game is dungeon crawling and boss fights, but the other half is you sitting there rotating items like a survival dependent on Tetris skills, and it actually really does. Dragon Village, in fact, finally returned with a massive new sequel, and this one is legitimately packed. See, well, DV3 mixes the old dragon collecting, breeding, village building, the PvP, and the cozy life sim vibes, now thrown in a huge RPG adventure. The pixel art style is S tier, and underneath it, there's a surprisingly deep system where you breed dragons to unlock rare species, build, and of course eventually fight higher ranks. It feels cozy, it is addictive, it is pretty easy to just sink hours of your life without even realizing it. Going down to number 23, we've got the game Downfolk. And I gotta say, man, Downfolk is finally making its way to mobile later on this year. That's an honorable mention. It already looks like one of the cleanest indie strategy games that's coming to mobile. It is a retro-style city-building game where you slowly reclaim your land from the darkness. The thing, in fact, focuses on some short, satisfying sessions instead of overwhelming management systems, which makes it feel more relaxed and addictive at the same time. It also really gives off that just one more run kind of energy. Check it out, it's an offline game and takes you $7.99. At number 24, we've got something here called Them You, which is less of a traditional game and more of a sort of interactive story experience that's built around emotion and lots of symbolism. The story is you follow Exo, which is a boy dealing with anger and loss after a fight with his brother, as his feeling slowly transforms into a surreal dreamlike storm where memory, imagination, and emotion all blend together in form of visuals. Instead of combat or challenge systems, this game is just built on these small little simple interactions to go further. It is a demo, the full game's coming out soon, it's free, it's playable offline, it's about 300 megabytes in total. Now guys, Voiders at number 25 is in fact, indie attempt at bringing that sort of Overwatch first-person shooting energy into Android. So it's an FPS built around different playable characters, team fights, abilities, and PvP mixed with some PvE content on the side as well. The gameplay leans in fact into close-range gunfights, skills, tight spaces, where each hero fills a different role during matches. It definitely feels rough around the edges in places, of course, but for a small mobile shooter, it's a pretty ambitious project as well. You May Never Leave at number 26 is a sort of game that instantly gives off that old school indie psychological horror vibe like the second you start it. You could also say it's a bit inspired by Playdead's Insight. So the story is you wake up trapped inside this dark facility where almost everything feels dangerous. There's puzzles, there's challenges, and everything feels tense and uncomfortable. It is clearly inspired by classic survival horror games as well, just make it creepier. It is an offline game. I think it is a demo, I didn't figure that out, and the whole thing's about 200 megabytes in total. Number 27, we've got whatever this thing is. I gotta say, it's actually one of the weirdest, most creative games ever. It's basically a survivor-style action game where Japanese kanji characters literally become your weapons. The whole thing has this super stylish Japanese folklore, and underneath there's still that familiar auto-attacking survival formula. Check it out, this is an online game, it's about 300 megabytes in total, and it's available on both the Google and the Apple Store. Going even further, number 28, we've got Pew Pew Slime. So it's an idle RPG with, in fact, a bullet hell. The gameplay is super simple at first. You know, it's got dodge attacks, different skills you get to learn along the way, but it gets surprisingly addictive once the screen starts exploding with effects all over the place. So, you know, the bullet hell. Great name, great game, it's Japanese, and it's also got all the right idle RPG elements as well. Highly recommend it. It's definitely one of those one more run type of games that slowly eats your time. Wrestle Manager is, however, on another hand, a fighting game, or you could say a lightweight wrestling tycoon game, where you just basically run your own promotion, fighters, etc., train them into stars, slowly turn little arenas into events, and you know, most of the gameplay just revolves around managing rosters, upgrading your facilities, improving stats, and setting up matches that pull bigger crowds and more money. So yeah, it's got that simple mobile management loop, and it's definitely more casual than basic hardcore wrestling sims, but it is actually fun. Going down to number 30, we've got As Divine Nuts. So As Divine, for those of you who know it, finally came back with a new RPG, a JRPG, or we could say. It is available both and as a premium release. They're both available on the Play Store. This version looks exactly like the kind of old school fantasy adventure, and if you're not familiar with the series, it follows this cleric that's traveling across the world with a party of great companions on a mission to uncover a bigger mystery behind the world itself. It definitely leans into that nostalgic anime formula, but for people who do miss traditional JRPGs per se. And last but not least, just a quick mention for those of you who missed it, we've got Wuchi Mini Yokai, which is one of those super cozy looking idle RPGs that has a surprisingly huge amount of stuff underneath it. The game basically mixes idle progression, village building, resource gathering, and big team battles where up to 10 characters fight together at once. It's definitely more relaxed than hardcore RPGs, but the constant unlocking of new companions, areas, dungeons, and upgrades do give it a dangerously addictive loop as well. And that's it. Thanks for watching, I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know which one's your favorite, and I will see you again soon. If you made it so far, leave me a comment, don't forget to hit like, and make sure to subscribe for future videos.